Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last game of Chinese Contenders Season 3 regular season games, and we have the best game that we are probably going to have throughout the entirety of the season. It's going to be the Titans T1W versus the other Titans, Team CC, and I couldn't have asked for two people to have better on this desk with me. I have Volumel in the corner of Team CC, and I have Vals in the corner of T1W. They're going to clash, and I think I'm just going to get out of the way and let them just, do their thing, have a little bit of analysis between each other, and I just want them to go at it. Guys, let's start with you, Volumel. You're the Team CC stand here. Let's see what you got.
Well, seeing how I think we've been very outspoken for both of these teams throughout the regular season. Me as the giant orchid stan that Vowels has so eloquently painted me as. After mentioning him just once, apparently I am just the best florist you could be, only picking orchids by the dozen. So Vowels, I have a friendly wager for you.
Ooh.
Okay.
Because you are so fond of T1W. Because I think that Team CC is the cat's pajamas, the bee's knees.
Mm-hmm.
If T1W happens to win this game, I will only refer to you as Lord for a week.
Okay.
And obviously reciprocated back to me. What do you have to say to that?
I'm all in. I'm pretty confident. I woke up feeling pretty regal today, so I'll take that bet.
Well, I certainly hope you're all in, because T1W is going to have to do just that and basically run compositions we've never seen to defeat Team CC, because they are that good at our favorite of the season.
I mean, you say that. Just look at regular results in the LAN story that's going on that you like to talk about so much. In the semifinals, Flag Gaming beat Team CC 3-1. The only round that Team CC actually picked up in that match was the competitive 6v6 elimination, not an actual game mode that we're seeing here. And what's happened in the finals today? T1W absolutely had their way with Flag Gaming. It wasn't even competitive, so I don't see it. I don't see Team CC.
You see, Vowels, China is a land of style. Each team has their own color, and sometimes it's just so drastically different that they just do not match very well. Now, you bring up a very solid point. Land Story Cup. Team CC dropped an unconvincing series to Flag Gaming. We just got done watching Flag Gaming. We just watched Flag Gaming kind of look a little bit suspect against a team that doesn't have very many wins chalked up this season. So while I do have to agree Flag Gaming is one of the best teams, could they have just overperformed? Is Team CC that poor that you think that Flag Gaming
you yourself just compared Team CC's results to Alter Ego results. I think I'd let that speak for itself.
All right, okay. Let's tone it down just a little bit. I want the numbers from both of you, okay? But for really quickly, Vals, give me the numbers, your predictions for T1W.
T1W 3-1.
Volumel.
I'll say CC 3-2.
CC 3-2. Well, there you have it. The gauntlet has been laid down. Enjoy this match. We have a perfect casting duo for it. We have I Hold Shift. We have Ryan Central. Guys, take it away. Let's get some energy.
Ryan, when did we become perfect? And I would like to know if we're getting paid extra for that.
Well, I mean, it's a difficult thing to say. Like, when do you define perfection? I would define it as having a perfectly round egg head, but that's just my own personal. It's how I like to sort of wrap it. Or goat's comp, because there's nothing more perfect. This is going to be a game where Team CC tries to play the meta, the one winner tries to play anything but. Granted, they're starting off with some tanks, but they're also starting off with a Mei. Team CC actually doing the same.
I'm so weak right now after that. And the first ice wall will be dropped by Hybe, and will separate a lot of players, including Songmoose, who will be taken down first, and now a wall of their own, but that's more for Team CC to try to find a way out, and they're not going to get that opportunity. T1W, rather convincingly with the main performance, will be able to take down 4 as they're able to trade away GQ Ren as well at the very end of that transaction.
One winner didn't stop or pause at all. They just kept walking forward and taking Team CC apart. They've had some pretty drastic changes into their lineup. They're running Athara in a very tightly enclosed space of the map. So kind of a bit of an awkward situation. T1W are not giving up any form of ground. So we're seeing Yakuma here going on a bit of a flank, trying to get a little bit of damage in. forcing T1W to back up just a little bit, brave some space for Team CC to get through this main choke.
It's a very interesting idea. I mean, we don't traditionally see Afara on this map, but it is a very good counter for the Mei, which has been a problem so far. But again, look how split apart Team CC is, and T1W does realize that, and diving right on in, they will be able to take down Orchid and Jichirin. And now going back to point, which was nearly recapped by Team CC in the back end by Yakumo and the Mercy of CO, but that won't last for very long, as it's a very good trade of positioning for T1W, and they'll move back and take the more favorable choke point. Although now there's a Sombra in play for Songboost, who will try to get things that actually will capture it for a small moment. But again, what is really gained by that besides a little bit of distraction?
Yeah, it's just trying to sort of cause awkward situations, but Yukuma can easily go down. There's no support with him, so he's taking a bit of damage, has to back up to try and get some support. Songboost is now on the Sombra, and Yukuma does get a pick onto Wuya, so that is a good opportunity to start pushing in, but the rest of T1W is racking up these kills.
This is not going well for Team CC. The idea was to be cheeky, and T1W is having absolutely none of that. And now they're looking at a 61%. It'll likely get to above 75 before this really gets contested again from Team CC. And T1W just kind of, it almost seems like they're a little caught off guard with how easy this is at the moment.
It's a tricky thing to sort of push through here. Like, T1W surprisingly playing quite far back. The Blizzard is there, and it's going to try and cut off the rest. 76% on the point.
Not even needing to use the Earth Shatter. Oh goodness, a long distance pin into an ice wall for Silver, as he's able to slap through Orchid as well, who had used the Transcendence. So now, as Team CC look to make one more, maybe futile attempt at this, it will be out to be in the back end of Jichirin getting this Earth Shatter, but there's just so much available for T1W to accept it and respond to it, although the cap is coming in the back end. But I don't even know if they even care. They just want to win the fight first. Firstly, Hybe will actually put himself on point to contest the Sombra of Songboost. Will drop a wall again to delay. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, we're seeing Mijia able to find at least some engagement, but a comeback around Jichirin able to find two, so it had to come on the back end of the good Reinhardt play, and Team CC with that back cap will be able to allow them some space for the frontline battle, which they'll win.
Yeah, they eventually get to pick up the Songboost, but the rest is coming fit. Yakumo, just the tracking was incredible there from Mijia to keep like the damage on him as he was boosted in. But right now, Team CC do have control of the point, but it's so awkward that there's really weird engagements happening right now.
It'll be recaptured. The overtime coming through as this Graviton Surge will pull everyone away. The EMP and then translocating back. Yakumo has switched, but the sound barrier is there, so no damage will be confirmed for Yakumo, as it looks like the overtime will fade away. And in very strange fashion to this first battle of the Goliaths, T1W will walk away with a pretty convincing win on Control Center.
Well, I haven't seen the team take that so cleanly. And the fact that the tempo and the high energy was kept up by T1W, in a sense that they kept a lot of pressure on that choke, whilst also being positioning themselves quite far back, was quite interesting. Like, they gave Team CC a lot of space, but because they had the Mayweather wall, Team CC couldn't take it. So we saw T1W play very conservatively there, not give up too much ground, not overextending, but still being able to control space in front of them. It was really well done, and you only see that sort of like level of stuff in like the Korean scene when it comes to meticulous controlling space with a hero like Mei. Granted, now we go into the night market, so the Mei is pocketed for now. We do see a Doomfist coming out of Mijia because, of course, he is well known for his Doomfist plays. This is where it should open up a little bit.
Oh, what a big sound wave to push most of Team CC up in the air. Silver will start to slap on through his opponent of Jichirin. And now Mijia coming in will be, again, that huge Doomfist player. He's got a lot of ability to move in and out from support to support. It'll just be CO trying to get his way out. Rocket punching and into the wall. Will he be able to finish the kill? He will, but now Mijia in a very dangerous spot. Will have the rocket punch back out to get out. And that ends up being very valuable. Meanwhile, the rest of the team of T1W will move back to get the capture of the point. But a team fight very convincingly won, plus the point will result in T1W extending this lead that they already have.
It's worth noting, just as a bit of a caveat, that this is played on the older patch, so of course the PTL's update to live on Tuesday. This isn't played on that, and we're seeing the strength of old Doomfist right at this point. So Mijia making a really good lead on this hero being very strong, on this patch at least. Is a little bit weaker for us now, but Mijia doesn't care.
He just uppercutted 4 players coming out of that high ground and now looking to re-engage if they do have the numbers. Do T1W, Seismic slamming in, and that will be enough to allow them to peel back out. Meteor Strike comes up, and with the rally being popped, I can't imagine this being used in any sort of aggressive way. Wants to try to ban to the balcony, and he actually finds some pretty decent timing to walk into the front line, which, again, he's just all over the map. Michia, absolutely insane, and now the Transcendence coming through for TCC as they felt like they needed it, considering they did not know where the damage was coming from. Michia, again, all over the map, able to find Origin. He's got a backline for free. The Graviton Surge being used, with T1W just finding all of these continual trades, and oh my goodness, Team CC is just completely lost out here, Ryan.
It's that flare, it's that extra Doomfist that's just able to make T1W look like a much more solid team. There's another Goose Chase taking out Sayo yet again. It's the fact that both these teams are running these comps, but TCC is playing it so straightforward. They don't have any flash and flare. They're playing for ultimates. They're playing for the grab combos and being able to survive with Samurai Transcendence. T1W is playing all of that, but they've dropped a Diva in place for the Doomfist that can get those picks on his own. Doesn't need the ultimate and can get so much damage done to these tanks.
Oh, will be our Shadow to start things off. Actually traded back, as it will be Silver trying to slap on through, but will be pinned, and GG Rin will come back as WIA is able to find himself the nice pick, and now coming through again, what looked to be a pretty decent setup for Team CC is just immediately countered with great execution from T1W, and with that, it will be the percentage getting to above 97%. Even one more pick with the Meteor Strike will keep Zijin oh, goodness gracious. That was absolute murder from T1W. I have no better way of depicting that besides just absolute murder.
These are the top two teams, not only Group A, but I'd say in Contenders China at least. Flag Gaming might be able to dispute that to some extent, but man, T1W look ahead of everybody right now. They are a team that don't drop maps to really anyone. They might have dropped a couple over the last 5 weeks, but they aren't a team that seems to have as many mistakes under their belt as Flag Gaming, LGD, of course, BTRG. All of these other teams that will be in playoffs tend to have a bit of a dark side where they tend to look weak. T1W, it just doesn't exist for them. They are on a high rise right now.
I'm lost for words. I mean, it's hard to pick out one standout performance. I mean, you look at Mija first and foremost when it comes to him being able to have so much success in the Doomfist flowing around like poetry out there, but it also comes to the back end of Silver, creating a lot of space. I mean, everything is going right for T1W. Even in that last team fight where Team CC start off with a pretty decent Earth Shatter, they funnel in some damage, it immediately gets countered. And now as we look at, again, this is the plays from Silver. He creates so much space for his team. And again, this is the Transcendence that just does absolutely nothing. Jichirin gets locked into an ice wall that's placed. I mean, everything going right for T1W. That's a just nonstop highlight reel, and there's the backline getting picked by Silver, and he does get repicked, but again, you see, gets picked away. Again, Mijia trying to dance on the point a little bit longer, and yeah, just a little bit of debate as Zijin is that last player left alive for a short amount of time, and goodness, this is just an absolute fireworks show, but we're getting the encore before we get the whole warm-up situation from the side of T1W. If this continues to go this way, Rob, we might be in for a very quick one, but you have to hope and expect that Team CC will come back with some sort of a reformation going into map 2.
Right. They've got loads of stuff, no doubt, under their belt still to use. They are a team that has played very much to the script when it comes to what compositions are good. It starts with a G, so you know that much, but they need to kind of pull away from that a little bit, try and do something that might try and catch T1W out. T1W is the team that knows these compositions. Quad DPS will play all sorts of stuff. They played Maygoats. That seemed to work really well. A lot of opportunities there for them to completely catch up Team CC, who look really easy to read right now. Yeah,
reading it like they're reading at a 3rd grade level. But the 5th graders here are T1W, and they're going to be farming up that first map 2-0 on Lijiang. We'll be coming back to our hybrid map just after this short break. Welcome back, everybody. I hold shift with Ryan Central. We've got T1W up 1-0 after our control. We'll be going to the hybrid on Hollywood. And Ryan, we do have a substitution to note after that first map.
Yeah, for Team CC, K-Hart is in for Songboost. Understandable, really. I think they need that element of... They've chosen Hollywood, so like maybe we'll see a little bit of Widowmaker out of K-Hart. We've seen quite a bit of it from him, at least I believe. So it is like they need that flair. They need to stop trying to play GOATs, because whilst it is very much a competition that can look after one another, T1W are able to tear that apart with individual play. Like, BGI is doing great on the Doomfist, but it's not sort of showing how well T1W are playing as a unit, right? But the ability to have those striking performances, to get individual picks by playing really well, it's just a difference here for T1W to sort of blow this one apart, really.
And it looks like K-Hart coming out of spawn from Team CC, who will be on offense first. We'll be sticking with Azaria, which Songboost was playing at one point in time, so maybe just not feeling the confidence in Songboost as they go into map 2 at a very big differential considering how that first map panned out. Migia, again, up close and personal, will be shield bashed for a small moment, but again, he's moving more fluid than Robert Frostbow at the moment, and he gets right out of dodge while the frontliners dive in and able to clean up 2 supports, and now looking for more as Silver will charge through. I don't know if they'll find any games, although Lazaria is a little caught out of position. Will be backed up by the hammer of Silver, but looking for his Beachin will actually try to follow up for the kill. They're committing a lot of dive in to try to find this pick, and Orchid will punish, so Team CC finding the proper way to punish this over aggression from T1W.
Oh, I was gonna say, poor K-Hart there. It was like, what's the film with Leo DiCaprio where he's like trying not to get killed by wolves? Felt very much like that, just out in the open.
Dude,
but they managed to turn it around. They dedicated so hard to that. The Reinhardt trying to get the pick, the Doomfist then coming in, and from there, the rest of Team CC was able to get in. So, really good job from K-Hart to be knocked in the air, really, by the Reinhardt. Was luck on their side a little bit, but they managed to turn that fortune around, be able to take the first point.
So if K-Hart was the Revenant, would the big bear that he fights be Silver 3 in that instance? Is that the depiction that we're drawing up?
Yeah, and Doomfist coming in too as a faster bear, or a wolf maybe, I don't know. In any case, it's on Hollywood, so it does make sense.
We have very questionable grab thrown out by Hy-Vee from T1W, not finding much success off it. But again, T1W just not letting off the gas ball. They wanted to contest this very early on, and now a grab coming in for Team CC as they try to find the counterattack. They have a lot of low health pools. A self-destruct being put there, and it will actually find Illusion, who could not quite get behind the shield of Silver. Miji again being a distraction in the backline, but Team CC is not allowing T1W to set up aggressively. They're punishing them immediately, and G-Ren and the rest of the gang will find nearly a full team wipe on T1W early in stage 2.
Kieran showing exactly how you tear people apart as Reinhardt. It's always jarring to switch to the perspective of Reinhardt when he's just going crazy with the hammer. Use the Earth Shatter is 20% on having another one. Team CC currently don't have any ultimates, but they're very close to getting a sound barrier, which could be huge. Granted, T1W don't have the ultimates, and the fact that Misha went down means that they don't really have that pick potential either.
So with T1W, if you continue to find little success with the Doomfist, is it just Misha playing overly aggressive, or does he need to just rein it in and find a way to play more with his team as Team CC wants to find a successful second stage? It is a 6-on-5, but the respawn proximity will allow Misha to come back, but it's not going to make a difference as Hy-Vee and Silver are immediately evaporated on the point. Misha has found the backline. He could potentially turn things around, but there's just no big bodies here for T1W. And it's going to have to come on respawns. It does not look like T1W feel the confidence to recontest. And Team CC up to a very quick start, 5 minutes and change to get this third stage.
Now this is more like it, and I don't think I've ever seen T1W being on the back foot this much. They've changed up a couple of things. Mullen Run is on Sombra, which we failed to mention before. Is a good portion to getting an EMP ready, which might be able to take all of the wind out of the sails currently for Team CC. But just less than 5 minutes on this final point. T1W need to work out what they want to do here. They have both support ultimates coming up, so they do have a couple of get out of jail free cards. But the rally does get used very early for Team CC just to keep them alive because they know what's coming.
And Mullen Rand will pop what was coming, which was the EMP. Misha will convert onto K-Hart, which is a big sustainable part of the damage from Team CC. So can they convert and find some of the frontliners? The Transcendence being popped as CC wants to continue to find some success in the payload. G-Ren has an Earth Shatter, will let it rip, but it does not find much success. He's pushed almost immediately away. Will try to charge, but he's discorded and immediately taken down as the respawn comes back through for Hy-Vee. And now as he gets involved, it will be what looks to be Team CC actually, surprisingly, able to find Mija and Mullen ran a little bit out of position. So all of a sudden, Team CC is able to turn this one back around. It didn't look like it was possible, but Mija stayed a little bit too long and gets punished for it once again.
Right, it was like Yakumo using themselves on the Brigitte as bait and managed to sort of bring out Hybe to be a bit more aggressive, and the rotation around the payload, Ring and Rosie. Graviton gets used by both teams, but it seems that Team CC yet again are going to be the ones coming out on top.
But they do lose
The point! That was so close!
Yeah, it's so close, and someone's going to have to finally touch. Jizurin more involved, but try to take down Hybe, which he'll do so successfully. Mijia will launch a Meteor Strike, but again, there's just no point focus throughout the entirety of this from T1W. They've wanted to play aggressively and off the payload, Ryan, and very quickly, with a ton of time, Team CC have put themselves in the driver's seat on Hollywood.
3 points with 3 minutes and 33 seconds left. Running pretty much nothing but 3-3, right? So they played so much better than they did on Lijiang, that goes without saying. But I need to reaffirm this because this might change on this map. T1W haven't dropped a map at all. They're 16-0, well, 17-0 up until this point. So
Yeah,
Team CC taking a win here might be able to turn things around. We've seen some pretty crazy stuff here happen already today and in previous games, but Team CC looking like they really don't want to drop Hollywood. T1W, not quite sure how they want to approach this. That composition that worked really well on Lijiang Tower isn't quite working here in the fake city of Hollywood.
Well, ritualistically, they do say that good things do come in threes, so Team CC will start that off, as you mentioned, with threes across the board with 3-3 comp. And Yakuma will now offer up the potential pharmacy combination to set things off defensively. And again, Mijia, he has been, you know, with pros and cons, been kind of criticized for kind of being that one-trick Doomfist and trying to make things happen, be that catalyst or be a playmaker. So far on Hollywood, he's been absolutely punished for his over-aggression plays.
And it just seems that now K-Hat's in the team, and nothing against zombies, but they look a little bit more concrete, and the coordination is a little better, looking out for one another. K-Hat, I think it's worth checking with the analysts at halftime whether they've been the majority standing. T1W have been able to sort of switch out certain players, right, with their lineup and compositions. Team CC, for the most part, have been running similar sort of stuff. But in this case, they are going to be running a Farah on his defense, which makes sense. Doomfist can't do much about them either, but they need to make sure that this can't keep happening, because Mijia has created so much space for the rest of his team.
And Jichirin will be the first blood in this aggressive push. Heidi able to find one as well. So we had our doubts about T1W, and they put most of them to bed as they're able to find a very convincing team fight. Still have to deal with the Farah and the Mercy, which they'll be able to do so considering there are no frontliners to help heal any distance. So the first tick already had made progress, the second shortly to follow, and it looks like Capture A will go very convincingly for T1W all of a sudden.
Just as convincingly as it seemed to for Team CC on their attack, we could have two very quick successive takes of this first point, but Team CC need to be able to adapt to this point a lot better than the T1W did, because they weren't able to prime off the high ground, take certain areas. Team CC want to be aggressive here. They don't have a grab, but they don't have many ultimates themselves either, so they need to be careful here. As I said, Mijia is very good at getting those picks, so they start off by getting one onto Yakumo.
Now he has the Meteor Strike to try to get into the backline a little bit more safely. Rocket punching K-Heart back into the mix will allow him to be taken away immediately. And T1W again, very convincingly on the back end of just using the Meteor Strike, will supersede Team CC at the double doors. And again, this first stage 2 for Team CC was nearly flawless. The payload barely ever stopped. T1W with a very quick point A would love to mimic the same thing here on stage 2.
It's very much a case that Team CC don't really have the ultimates to back them up. They have Orchid's Transcendence just coming online now, but that's not going to turn a fight. It might be able to deal with some of the ultimates that T1W may throw at them, but there's nothing there to completely team wipe T1W, who are moving his payload quite aggressively. Mijia almost dies, but has to hit something to get some shield, so does really well to keep himself alive there.
He does uppercut two of the frontliners. They'll put him in the backline. The Earthshammer comes through Transcendence. The counter for the side of T1W. Looking to counter with one of their own. Able to get to the backline. And all of a sudden, the fight has completely flipped sides of the maps. No one has been eliminated as of yet, as Team CC was able to find enough sustain from the Transcendence. But again, they have a lot more value as the rally was used. And with that extra shielding comes extra health pool. And that will be enough just to allow them to out DPS eventually Team CC, who are on the retreat. It's a soft reset, though, Ryan. Anything can still be turned around.
Well, it's anything but soft. We're seeing a lot of aggressive coming out of here. The Diva Bomb creates a bit more space, gives them air to breathe, but there's still people down in this engagement. They have a grab, but nothing really to wrap it into with. So the Reinhardt just does the whole left click.
Well, Jichirin will actually push away Silver. Can that allow the rest of the damage from Team CC to find through the Earth Shatter? Oh, he gets pushed back a little bit too far, allowing Silver to put up the shield, so it finds absolutely nothing. And now T1W needs to find a way to convert on these low HPs that are in front of them. There are no more big bodies here and it looks like after a little bit of delay, it won't be contested for super long, as they are finding a couple D-Mechs and hopefully a couple of picks. So Legion does not quite know which target to go to. K-Hard is near full charge, so with all this time gained, if they can't find the Zarya, Team CC very well could recontest this. The Transcendence being used in the effort, but it will be CEO and Zijin taken away, and with this comes a 6-on-4 favoring T1W. Now Mija's got some targets in his front of him, which will allow him to find the eliminations and the second checkpoint.
They dedicated Sound Barrier and Transcendence on the defense for Team CC, who are currently trying not to get caught out too. So, and CEO goes down too. So this is an element of T1W managing to win fights fairly cleanly. He's still dedicating ultimate, so it's not completely for free. But this is still okay for Team CC that have managed to waste a lot of time. Now the payload started to get into an area that will suit them a little bit more. But I said the same thing for T1W on their defense. We still saw Team CC able to take the point fairly quickly. So it's just a case that Team CC have to stall for as much time as possible. Nishi goes down low, but manages to survive. He knows exactly how far he can take this Doom first.
Hy-Vee on the right-hand side will actually soak in the Brigida, which will find the focus. The Meteor Strike coming down. Lucio was also pulled into it on the opposite of the map, and now Team CC wants to come back. It's 5v6 for them, but they pull in a grab and a self-destruction, which does take down Hy-Vee. So all of a sudden, we're looking at a pretty even fight with no big bodies. Transcendence being popped for Team CC, trying to hold on, but Mija's full HP with a couple of shields, both from the rally as well from this aggressive play. And wow, we'll find the headshot from the hand cannon just as Orchid was trying to get back at his spawn. All of a sudden, T1W looking to mimic, if not potentially supersede the time that Team CC was put, but it won't come without contest.
It's like a couple of seconds between them, but there is one final engagement left for Team CC to touch point, but they can't leave it up at all. You can see the pressure building for T1W, who are just able to build up so many ultimates, and Silver's getting the picks and has an F-shot already. He's going to use it.
Sound barrier for both teams simultaneously, but again, you mentioned it, Silver with that Earth Shatter was enough to take down the majority of the front line for Team CC, and again, the numbers game too strong. The payload will roll forward, and we'll be left with marginal time in between the two. We are getting a battle of two very high-throttled offenses.
Very much so, but it's still a lot of pressure onto Team CC that are a map down, so this is a great way to bring them back into the game. Not much between them, 25 seconds at most. This is an element where Team CC now have to push the payload as far as they can, and considering that they really didn't let that up by any stretch, really, they didn't really seem to lose any fight throughout it. It's still a lot of ask for Team CC. They wanted to win that convincingly, and you thought that maybe they could do that with the time back that they set themselves, but T1W are not far behind here.
The pressure was put on, and I mean, to be fair, Ryan, they needed to have that kind of a performance. You don't want to see that time bank get a little bit too far out of hand, so it is just marginally about 30 seconds in between the two, which will set up Team CC on defense first. T1W looking to continue the momentum on offense, and if you're Team CC, I mean, quickly on the analysis side of things, and where do you need to find the success defensively? Because so far, neither team has looked all that great when it comes to holding off these offensive pushes.
It's more about being able to dedicate ultimates to the right fight, because I think on the defense, if you can take the point and take it cleanly, you can set up where you want to take your engagements. You have control over the battlefield, so to speak. It's like the map that you want to play on, and it's a home crowd. So when you take that on defense, it's a lot easier, but you just got to make sure that you're dedicating the ultimates to the right fight, not dedicating a Transcendence or a Sound Barrier to a fight that you know that you're eventually going to lose. You need to go all or nothing into some of these engagements. That's why we're seeing such an aggressive hold already.
This is just absolutely insane as we're continuing to see just over-aggressive defenses coming through, and a good attempt for Team CC, but Mija and the rest of the crew splits them up nicely and picks away the parts that were in front of them, keeping a nice cohesive angle. And yeah, we've got ourselves T1W diving in. They've got the numbers, and they'll likely get this first point pretty convincingly. And goodness, I mean, at this point, I mean, what do you do? I mean, things are looking a little bit strange for the Team CC defense.
Very weird, very, very weird in total. Accidentally hit my microphone for those that are wondering what that noise was, but Team CC took a bit of a tumble and fall there just there too. So T1W want to sort of have a look at what they can do, how much time they can make. Still 2 minutes left on the clock, right? So they still have time to make this payload go all the way to the end of the map, but they're aiming towards the end of second point, or even third. They can potentially keep pushing on ahead. Team CC need to find a win here.
The Discord that's been placed on GG Ren will put them very low. The Graviton Surge will pull everybody in, but the damage just is not here. The charge comes out, but unfortunately, everyone had gotten booped on up, so now all of a sudden, a little bit of a staggered team fight for T1W. They do have the rally, so the extra HP is well appreciated, but no eliminations as of yet, and Rin has got himself farmed up in Earth Shatter. When will he pull it is the biggest question. The Brigida has been taken down for T1W. Do they even need to use it is the bigger question. There's still 1.5 minutes to kill for the defensive Team CC, and now they have numbers, but as I say that, Mijia comes back and recontests. The Graviton Courage will pull players in right on top of the payload, and Hy-Vee will actually have enough damage to shoot through 2 very important targets as the Reinhardt will fall, as well as the Zenyatta, and that will be enough for T1W to steamroll through the rest of the fight, looking to get this payload on his high horses.
The synergy just doesn't really seem there for Team CC. We've seen a lot of teams running Sombra, for example, and able to string some combinations together to get the picks, but right now Team CC are dedicating ultimates, but not really for anything in particular, maybe a pick or two, but T1W is winning out engagements by dedicating no ultimates, because that's the beauty of having a Doomfist.
Oh, look how spread out this team gets. The Earthshatter comes through for T1W, but it doesn't find enough as Mijia is already in the back line. He's found himself 3. Mijia put this down for the 4th potentially. He's got the Reinhardt low. He'll get some assistance from the rest of his team, but what a great play from T1W. Knowing the Earthshatter was there, they completely spread out. They used the Graviton nicely, and they're able to pick apart the backline for essentially free.
And they know where they're setting up. They have time. Team CC are in disarray. They need to work out left or right is what direction they're going. T1W are going to be prepared for that, and Rally gets used on both sides. Sabari dedicated early, but Yakuma goes down.
Oh, it's unfortunate. They wanted to try to keep everyone up as much as possible, but again, Mijia in this backline is just being such a force, and no one's able to deal with it. Silver 3 also charging through Jichirin's shield again. He's been so good at countering out his opposing Reinhardt, K-Hart, wondering where everything went wrong. Now, just finally, Ryan, the time bank has been completely expended, but we've got a lot of free payload push before this will be recontested from Team CC.
The T1W is pushing his payload faster than the first time, even with like the time back. So Team CC need to dedicate fights in the right fashion, because there's one support ultimate. Ouya has it ready for T1W. Team CC has their own. It's how they use it. It's who blinks first in this case, and then Reinhardt on the payload left on his own can just spell even more travel time for T1W here.
Meteor Strike comes down. Mijia's able to take down Seal very quickly, and Ouya's able to find Orchid as well. Graviton Surge used in desperation with a self-destruct, but there's already a Transcendence here. It will take down Silver, but is it enough is the question. Mijia says probably not, as he's able to shoot through even the shielded Zarya, and with that, again, comes a team fight win, but the potential to find full 6 points is the bigger key.
Mijia just seems to have free real estate right now, and T1W are able to just play that GOATS composition. It works. They don't need the Diva because they have the aggressive nature of Mijia to be able to get the burst damage and picks. He's doing so well that it's very much a big dedication. Team CC have ultimates, have Transcenders, I believe used Earthshatter just then too, So now they're using ults, but still not winning fights.
And Hy-Vee was one of the only members stunned, and he was pretty open and vulnerable, but not able to find the kill. Good sustain coming from the backline, and now we've got ourselves a pretty even team fight. Team CC with the respawn proximity needs to find a way to take down a big target. Silver very low, but again, he has some support here with the Brigida and the Lucio Illusion staying alive, and he's able to put down the sound barrier, so all of a sudden, things looking very capable for T1W to push on through. They've got a low HP, a health pool of Yakuma that they'll shoot through. The Earthshatter is able to find 3. Seal gets knocked down, but there's not enough follow-up damage as Silver was low himself, and it looks like just in the nick of time, Team CC will find the clutch picks they need before Mijia can re-engage. So it will stall out just narrowly at 5.
It's still such a big ask for Team CC. Yeah, they just get it on the breadth. Just a small amount right off the payload. You can see the distance there, 78.69 versus 79.09, I believe it was. So big plays from the Doomfist. Seems to work out. This was the perfect situation. Look how much health Mijia has from the sound barrier and is able to just act like a tank himself. Like, that's kind of how Doomfist works. It's like a very aggressive off tank when he has that much shield and health, and the rest of his team is there to clear up. Just that extra CC, stun ability, and how it works really shows why Doomfist can be scary at the highest tiers.
Mijia with getting his dukes up, finding the 1-2 combo. Typically we see the right hand punching, but he lets the left hand get involved a little bit more as well, as he finds a couple of kills in the backhand of that. So now T1W with an attempt to, again, for all intents and purposes, that was a 6. That was 6 points. I mean, that payload was mere centimeters away from being fully pushed. So a very tall task ordered up for Team CC, and they found a lot of success on offense last time, Ryan. Do you just stick with what worked before and hope that you can find the same success, or do you try to pull out something cheeky?
Well, I mean, it seems that T1W are running the same thing on the defense, and they did open it up. They played far aggressive and just made it so Team CC could easily take the point, right? So they're not going to make that same mistake twice. Team CC just really need to work out a way to change up their comp. Like, K-Hart was on Hansa for a split second to use a sonar arrow. It's now changed it over to Zarya. I'd like to see less of this. I'd like to see a bit of variation, a bit of play coming in from Team CC, who are just so dedicated to playing the meta and what's good right now instead of what they're good at.
Mijit tries to get involved in the frontline battle, but will be punished by Jichirin, who still had him within hammer range. And with that, Team CC will win a pretty convincing early on fight. Jichirin doing a lot of the work, able to find some fire strike damage as well as utilizing the hammer, swinging from left to right. And with that comes enough numbers for Team CC to find at least one tick. Will it be recontested? It does not look like there's going to be much of an effort, although the Zarya has moved up to the upper cafe, so maybe Hy-Vee wants to give this a go to contest. It looks like they will last second before the third point can get put in, but Mijia once again will be taken down, and now potential to snowball a little bit for Team CC, and they smell it. They're diving on in, charging through, looking for another pick. Silver might be that possible option, but it will be Illusion not quite able to skate his way out on the Lucio. And again, you got to be careful at some point for Team CC. They are diving in pretty hard. They're finding a couple of picks, but this could very easily be turned around if they're not careful.
The payload's still moving, so that's a lot better than we saw out of, what was it, Lucky Future that one time. So that's a good thing. They managed to get a good, like, 30-40% from just doing this onto the charge of Zarya's Graviton. So it does set themselves up quite nicely for this next engagement. But T1W still have a good amount of ultimates themselves. So they know that they have no opportunity to waste here because T1W are coming into this fight with the advantage.
Will we see an Earth Shatter come down for Silver? Yes, we will, but it will hit absolutely nothing. And now the Transcendence being popped with the Graviton Surge. Team CC will throw self-destruct on top of it. Will it find any eliminations? Oh, Zegen able to take down 4, and that's going to be enough for Team CC to get themselves nearly the full team wipe and a lot of steam rolling ahead for the second stage.
Oh, it was perfectly executed. It didn't seem that T1W were able to see it come in. Oh, we're completely negated. Zegen again is just going to back up a little bit. This payload's moving. It's still got 90 seconds left on the clock. It does look like it's going to put not quite touch the payload uncontested, but this is where T1W are going in aggressive.
Looking for a Graviton Surge, but it doesn't actually connect with anything, and all of a sudden, T1W, all they need to do is win one team fight. Mijit will drop the Meteor Strike in, and Mullenran with the Rocket Whip will be able to take down Orchid, so all of a sudden, we have 1 minute and 10 seconds left, the payload not quite touching the checkpoint, and now all of a sudden, things looking a little bit more dire as Team CC in that last team fight, it was pretty PogChamp worthy, but they used a lot, and not a lot is back up ready to be used.
T1W almost wanted to lose that fight to an extent so they could restart a little bit quicker, get onto the payload just at the breadth, and now they have a big advantage. All of this time is for T1W to waste. Rally does get used from TCC. They can't let up. They need to win this fight, otherwise they go 2-0 down, and that really negates their chances of being able to bring this one back.
Looking for potential. Looks to be the last team fight as these fights have gone on for a very long time. Jichirin able to find Mijia. Mullenran finding his counterpart as well. Sound Barrier being used for T1W. Transcendence being responded with for Team CC. Again, a 5-on-5 fight occurring on the payload. And Jichirin very low, needs to find a little bit of sustain from somewhere, but not giving a lot of space, as now finally a Sound Barrier will come through. That'll help with the sustained battle, but just as previous, the Sound Barrier comes out and T1W will pop the Transcendence.
Here we go again.
Self-destruct being used with the Graviton Surge. Could it be potentially another? No, not quite, as Zegen only be able to find Mijia, and T1W do have eliminations on their side. The numbers for this payload looking pretty solid, and with only 5 seconds left, there will be a Graviton Surge pulled out, but it looks like T1W will be able to hold on defensively, and that'll be the end of the hopes for Team CC. The second map going the way of T1W.
There was a lot on Team CC. Their defense fell apart, and it just gave T1W a fairly straightforward win, I'd say. Like, it was one of those things that Team CC came out on top, set a much faster time bank on Hollywood, but just fell apart when it came to defending both times. So really something that they need to work on. T1W aren't letting up. They aren't going to drop a map. They haven't so far. They're currently 18-0 when it comes to map score. They want to make sure that they can finish out 20-0 and set themselves up quite nicely for the playoffs.
Well, we can sit here and talk about it some more, but I'm more anxious to see the faces of both of our analysts. I can imagine one with a very smug smirk and maybe another with hands in head. So we'll just throw it back over to Kenobi and break things down over at the desk.
Welcome back, guys, from halftime. Thank you, iHope Shift and Ryan Central. And yes, you can see it. Val's has got that smirk on his face. His team is up 2-0. And you're right, iHope Shift. This is 18-0, and T1W is trying to do something that no team has contenders before for China, is 20-0. So definitely looking to get that perfect record. But, you know, with what's at stake here and what's been going on between these two analysts, these beautiful analysts, these massive brains that I have on my desk, I would like to try something a little bit different. So T1W was picked by Val's at the start, and Team CC was picked by Val's at the start. So, Val's, I need you to tell me some good things about Team CC.
they're really good at punishing some of the aggression we're seeing coming from T1W. In particular, Silver 3 overextended, trying to get that pick onto, I believe it was Keha under Zaya right at the start of their Hollywood defense. Not only did Team CUC punish that and get the first cap out of it, but then managed to ride that momentum out for 2.5 points, not taking the foot off the gas, constantly punishing T1W, and that was a huge part of why they finished with the huge time back they have. So really good at seizing the opportunities they get. Orchid, of course, fragging out on the Zenyatta. There's been times during this series where it seems like the only picks that TCC are getting are from the Orchid in the backline, throwing shapes on the Zenyatta. So credit him playing really well. And just one more player I want to highlight, Zijin. I've counted 3 Gravitons now. He's managed to eat from both Misha and Hybe on Desire. Neither of them have the right amount of discipline with Desire Ultimate. Zijin's just feasting. So I don't think the 2-1 scoreline. I think T1W has been the better team. Of course, I'd say that. But Team CC have been keeping it a little bit more competitive than maybe we would have guessed based on control map. I have to give them credit.
So going to the other side, Volmel, as much as I know it might pain you in this current situation that you're in, why don't you tell me some good things about what T1W has been doing?
It pains me only slightly because I've been so excited to see what Media can do coming up from Open Division. I mean, this has been a streamer, a very popular figure in Chinese Overwatch, finally taking the steps to kind of go forward and chase that path to pro. And as you've seen, this is the type of stuff he's been doing for the last 3 months, I'd say. Absolute highlight reel. Like it's unreal the stuff that he can do. We saw earlier on today, I don't know if anybody in chat had caught the Korean contenders, but we saw a very similar dichotomy to this kind of layout, and it's starting to follow those same shapes. Mija is absolutely a phenomenal DPS star. I do want to see him on a little bit more things. I think his Doomfist is absolutely out of this world, some of the best in the world, I'd say. But another person I really want to highlight is T1W just overall. Like we can talk about how Team CC tries to capitalize on those advantages that T1W kind of very graciously gave them. But T1W, in the same sense, is capitalizing on some of the mistakes that Team CC is doing. You know, every fight it seems like Yakumo is just getting picked out constantly. If it's not Yakumo, it's Jichirin kind of just charging in blindly, something that we've seen him do quite a bit, and they're there to capitalize. So it's not something that they're just kind of overlooking. They're not overthinking it. They're taking it, they're taking every advantage they can get, because again, these are 2 very potent teams. As much as the 2-0 looks dominant and Control did look fairly convincing, I'd say. Hollywood, I can't stress it. I think one of the closest maps we've had all season.
Definitely. So I want to kind of harken back to this Micha that we've been talking about and this composition that we kind of seen. We saw it in Korean Contenders a little bit. And what do you think is really the best way to try and counter it? I know it's a very new composition, but is there anything that you think T1CC should be doing a little bit better to try and deal with Micha on the Doomfist?
I think so when we look at like a standard 3-3 composition, there is a severe lack of healing. You have some on-demand burst healing with Armor Pack, but you kind of want to invest that into your Reinhardt because of how pressured he's going to be. Outside of that, you don't tend to have too much on-demand healing. And when you look at the composition that T1W wanted to run, it was Diva. And that kind of leads me towards maybe seeing an Ana. And if that's not the case, maybe even putting in a McCree, so you're running Brig McCree at that point, making it very difficult for Mija to come in. But I think even just moving Orchid to another hero that he's actually quite proficient at, moving it on to the Ana so they have a little bit more burst healing, so Jichirin can play a little bit more aggressively, would kind of lend themselves to what Team CC wants to do anyways.
Well, we're going to be seeing if Team CC can maybe try to bring it back, get that reverse sweep going. We saw in the game, first game that we saw, it almost could happen, and I bet Volmel is just praying with all of his might to try and make sure that Team CC... Bless RNGs, get him in the chat, help out your boy Volmel. But if you're...
Send me your energy.
Just send him all the energy possible. But if you're Vals, you're one win away from being a Lord. So by the end, at the other side of this break, we will see what happens.
Welcome back, everybody. We are trying to get everything synced back up for you guys, and meanwhile, T1W will be setting themselves up nicely for this first engagement. Again, they're on defense, keep in mind, but playing very aggressively, almost borderline offensively if the map were to be flipped around. And they'll set themselves up with a nearly full team wipe early on here in Horizon Lunar County, which will be our assault map round.
Yep, this is the one. They decided that they didn't want to go to Hanamura, and already a pretty torrid start for Team CC, who haven't been played as well as we would usually expect. Misha has gone from an upper division player, streamer, all the way to Contenders, and is now showing up on the biggest map.
The Diva tries to challenge. He says, "Get off my high ground," and then immediately boops away what would have been a charging G-Chirin off the map. Have a nice flight, my friend, as G-Chirin will be probably halfway to Mars by now after that rocket punch, and continues to play aggressive, knows he has the numbers, but able to turn around. It is Orchid for a small moment, a little bit of brief respite from that onslaught that has been Mija so far, but again, Team CC struggling to get out of spawn.
It was crazy play. He is just taking this map by storm, and this isn't against the low tier team. This, I would assume, would most likely be the finals with how both of these teams are playing currently. T1W really making advantage of Mija, who so far has been been in and out of matches, hasn't been a complete star player that's been the first on the team sheet, but is showing exactly his promise and why he might be for the rest of Chinese Contender Season 3.
Wow, what a clutch shield barrier that was, getting placed onto what would have been a pinned Lucio. Illusion survives very narrowly, but again, just T1W, this, again, keep in mind, Ryan, this is Team CC's map choice, and they have yet to even get anywhere near the point at the moment.
Complete control by T1W. There are a few ultimates coming on for Team CC. The Graviton is a big one, but so far they haven't really had the impact or effect that they would quite want. Silver Free is quite aggressive here, where he's trying to stand and hold. Is it going to be able to get onto the high ground in time? So this might be an opportunity for Team CC to try and take the low ground and just barrel through T1W, who are currently on the low ground.
DJ just pushes away G-Chirin, trying to find the support line, but it will force the Transcendence out from Orchid. Now the self-destruct coming down through. We'll be able to find both frontliners for T1W, so Team CC looking for some success. And again, with the frontline being down, Mija will not have the same kind of luxuries and freedoms that he once had, although G-Chirin and him will kind of collide heads for a small moment, and eventually a Soundwave will finish off the low health pool that he had. So Team CC, again, finding the conversion on the front line, will likely convert off point A here.
I feel like a lot of the fights that Team CC have won has been down to hubris coming out of T1W. They were on the low ground. They should have prepared for the next engagement, took the better positioning, but they wanted to scrap, play aggressive, just brawl on the point, and it really just gave an advantage to Team CC to barrel on through. Granted, they used a Graviton and T1W didn't, but still, this is areas where T1W have been a little bit sloppy.
G-Chirin tries to drop the hammer on this fight, but will be soaked up in Silver 3 and High B, the double front line. For the side, a little awkward moment there as Mija will just be taking a moment to stare at Yakumo, who will be one of the last ones to get taken out on this potential engagement for capture point B. And T1W just responding nicely after, I won't call it a whiff, but at least well-soaked Earthshatter out of G-Chirin's hammer.
Yeah, took the brunt of it and survived. Not many people can do that against Pearl Reinhardt. T1W have a good few ultimates on this defense, though. Both of their support ultimates just to back them up in case they need them. But really, look at how aggressive T1W are playing. Good portion of the time it works, but often it's Wuya that's getting the picks, really, that start off the engagement. So whilst Misha and Silver Free are leading from the front, the picks are coming from the back.
And now, a nice little knock up there for Mija. Now going into the Meteor Strike. We'll drop it down onto what will be just a barrier from K-Heart. And now all of a sudden, with Team CC having respawned and finding a little bit of sustain through that team fight, they'll pop the rally, look to move on in, but able to find a really nice Earthshaker with Silver, allowing Mija to clean up CO. The Transcendence gets used, but it's all in a pretty futile effort, as again, Mija is just allowed to play for free. They're gonna have to back up, as numbers are not looking so favorable for our team in green. But again, the respawns will allow them to contest the point pretty easily. No snowball should occur for Team CC, but they want to give it a go. And it looks like a sound barrier will be used defensively for T1W. The Graviton Surge coming through for Team CC with the self-destruct, but all the eliminations have already occurred before the explosion radius can occur for the self-destruct sequence. So now Team CC found themselves 2 ticks and looking for a third. It will be contested for a small moment. Hybe does have a Graviton Surge when he comes back from spawn, if he'll even get a chance to. Coming back in is Mija to contest, as a lot of low numbers are occurring. Looking for the Graviton Surge will soak up the entirety of the team. Mija will find out one, Hybe with another, and the Transcendence will keep T1W alive. They'll sustain the defense.
That was a very weird engagement. Team CC just weren't able to really push on ahead to go past the objective to get the picks needed for T1W. There's still, you know, people stalling on the point, but granted, it's Baby Diva who has currently been barred from visiting certain aspects of Horizon Lunar Colony. But Xijing is taken out of the fight as the rest of Team CC prepare. Really long engagement, really long fight. Team CC tried to run with the advantage that T1W effectively handed them, still weren't able to finish the map. 91% on it though, so it's not a complete failure on the second engagement. But T1W seem to be doing this damage to themselves a little bit.
It's maybe just a little bit of voting towards his confidence that even if we get picked out here, we trust our respawn game to be okay. Now looking to start things up. How will Team CC approach? Transcendence will be utilized in this aggressive attack, but Silver with the Earth Shatter coming in does not actually find much. Now GTR with an opportunity of his own, but no one was really on the low ground. Fortunately, they are able to take down Miji and Silver 3, two of the biggest thorns in their side thus far. 6 players still on point. Charging him into the wall will be Mullen Rand, who looks like nothing but a flattened pancake, and with that coming up kills to secure checkpoint B with a little bit of time on the clock still.
Could have done it a lot faster, but could have been stuck on the first point altogether. I feel like a good opportunities were seized from Team CC there. I wouldn't necessarily say that it was just T1W giving areas and engagements because they were being too aggressive or just wanted to style on Team CC a little bit, but it was a lot slower than you would have maybe hoped. And considering how well Team CC haven't been defending so far, it might be tricky. So like it's all on T1W's attack right now, how Team CC are going to set themselves up nicely. But brilliantly, Team CC are not going to be playing like a tanky composition on this this part of the map. We're going to start to see anti-dive, which has been really effective in this area. It might be enough to trip T1W up a little bit, especially with that Doomfist.
Sticking to their guns, at least for most of this, is Mijia on that Doomfist. Again, he's been just such an impactful player. And at certain points, you got to think that the conversation happening in comms for Team CC is what do we do to deal with it? And it almost kind of seems like, well, we're just going to not be able to do anything with it. Let him have his gameplay as it is and hope that we can find picks around Mijia before we turn around to him. But Team CC setting up for defense. We'll go into battle with a very polarized look. Stationary setup with the Orisa. And of course, you've got the Junkrat and K-Heart will be popping out that Widow that we mentioned very briefly earlier on.
I like this comp. I want to see Team CC running stuff that isn't just tanks. I feel like they're just opening themselves up for T1W to push on through, play around it. They're a smart team. They have coaches, they have plans, they know exactly where this competition works and know its weaknesses. But T1W playing dive, so this should be interesting. Dive versus anti-dive. This might be just a case of sheer force of will being able to push on through, or maybe Team CC let a few mistakes swing by and that really eats them up.
Mullen Rand already on this Tracer is forced to use the recall, very low HP, nearly getting taken down for first blood, but will survive, which will be good, at least open up the opportunity for T1W to continue to at least contest for a short amount of time. Not a lot of the time killer. Now jumping on in will be T1W's front line, but immediately met by Jichirin and the gang as Yakumo is still here trying to siphon things away from the Genji, who will be booped away, and going into more of that automatic fashion is the Widow. The Sniper not really finding much as far as confirmed kills, but the little bit of extra damage that it does provide will allow Team CC to accept that first effort at the dive pretty well, and a little bit of a longer engagement here between Yakumo and Mullen Rand will just result in a disengagement. As all of this has happened, a lot of more extra focus happening in the high ground, which you weren't able to see, which allows T1W to continue to play this push a little bit more aggressively, although very close to death is Illusion, and with Silver falling as well, that's the front line and the support down for T1W, and you have to wonder how much longer will this push really sustain itself. The answer comes shortly after the question, which is not very long.
Yeah, Team CC gave up a lot of low grounds to sort of, gave up the high ground entirely that T1W with the dive was able to take so much space away from them. Built up the pressure, but it was really well played by Yakumo on the Junkrat and Shakiran on the Orisa just to keep themselves alive, get themselves on the front foot again. There is a Riptide ready, which is great against dive to be able to just pick it apart as it's coming in. It is going to get used. Pulse Bomb doesn't seemingly find anything, but Silver 3 gets picked up to walk in, so this needs to be a big Riptide.
It finds Silver, it's a valuable target, even though they do lose Orchid. Xijin is still here for the front line of Team CC. The blade being pulled out for Mijia, who's able to find himself too, slapping on in, and now all of a sudden, a couple of kills. Oh, almost actually stepped into that self-destruct for a quick moment. looking to find a way into the back line, though. Has found himself Yakumo, who will be a very elusive target with that concussive mind, just popping him up and to and fro where he wants to place. But again, he's not able to really sustain much of that dive. And on point, meanwhile, T1W has found the trade onto the last standing frontliner of Zijin, and that will be T1W likely converting point A relatively quickly. About the same amount of time that Team CC had done previously.
Exactly, yeah. So K-Heart switched over to Tracer, maybe to just stall a point at the end. It is a big ask now from what Team CC decide to do. Orchid is now over to Zenyatta. They have a rally. We have Yakuma actually switched over to the Lucio for now because Seo still has that rally. So it's a bit of a topsy-turvy lineup for Team CC now that they've had to completely adjust. T1W taking the momentum and get the first pick of Orchid. This might be a very quick point to B take.
Primal Rage just to keep everybody pushed around once again. But again, where do you find the focus? You need to find a way to get the Brigida taken down. The Graviton Surge will be topped as well, but it doesn't really soak in too many people because Silver is continuing to bash them away. Regardless, the damage is still good from T1W, who do have numbers, but again, the respawns are still very close. Jichiren able to find a pin, will take down Muya, which is big considering that he had the last bit of sustain as that Transcendence was ready to go. Now it's just up to Illusion. When will he pop this sound barrier? And he's going to need it pretty soon as the numbers are still here, but again, the health pools are actually staying alive pretty nicely as the grab comes through, but doesn't really find a whole lot. Self-destruct in the backline now will force out the sound barrier finally for T1W. Transcendence comes in very clutch for Orchid and the rest of Team CC, who desperately need that sustained healing, but again, the numbers just too much for T1W. It just comes down to finding 1 or 2 more eliminations, and they very well could successfully take this point as it is past 2 ticks, looking for the third. The eliminations onto the front line of Chichiren again go down. It's just up to K-Heart to stay alive, who will be soaked in. The last 3 players actually all being soaked in. A nice little transgression there as Mijia will lock in a nice Graviton Surge, and T1W, they'll do better on point B than their counterparts of Team CC.
It was pointed out at the break, but K-Heart has had so many Gravitons eaten. What do Team CC expect to do to try and win engagements when their one big tool of winning team fights constantly gets eaten? It's like Misha's on the Doomfist. He's able to get picks on his own and have individual performances to string together 2 to 3 individual picks onto Team CC. Team CC don't have that. As soon as T1W have the point advantage, that seems to be it. And it's a case of Team CC stalling for time as opposed to getting picks themselves or dedicating ultimates. Their synergy's all over the place, whereas T1W are playing it to a T. Even when they're not running the Doomfist, they know how much emphasis goes into making sure that they have good drive combos, synergy with a Reinhardt Earthshatter, those kind of areas, which is just completely lacking with Team CC.
And there's a lot of things to consider, you know, when it comes to adjusting on the fly, especially as they're going to need to. A very stark difference in the time banks as T1W will get to see what they have to do as they will set up on defense first. And coming into battle with a very similar setup that we've seen previously, a little bit of dancing happening between Illusion and Mullen Rand, having a little bit of fun, very loose and very confident, as deservedly they should be.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like there's so much, looking so much stronger. I'd say Team CC aren't out of this just yet, and they're wanting to run this composition yet again on the attack. T1W running a very similar thing, but with the Doomfist, and it's so good on this part of the map, right? Because you have the low ground and high ground to easily perch across. Again, we're seeing T1W go very aggressive, jumping onto the low ground. They can't let what happened on their defense the first time happen, where they just stay there.
It's a flat-out brawl right in front of the high ground, and again, you mentioned that extra advantage that Miji gets. Goodness. Even able to move from left to right pretty convincingly, and that extra damage that the Doomfist provides will allow T1W to pretty much steamroll through the first fight so far.
And we're seeing again Silver 3 being very aggressive, deciding that he doesn't want to reset. There's just a minute left on the clock. Team CC need to bring something out, and like nowhere seemingly, there don't many ultimates built up that are going to win engagements, but straight away Hybe's getting the first pick.
Silver got into a very sticky situation, and immediately the damage of Hybe and Mijia come on through to peel away from him. He gets the heals, they're able to re-engage, and Team CC fall apart at the seams once again, down to just 30 seconds, and I don't know what else you even attempt to run if you're Team CC to try to make this happen. There's still no ultimates left here, Ryan. It's going to come down to a pretty vanilla fight for Team CC.
They've got to bring something crazy out. They'll have a rally ready, maybe a Diva Bomb that might be able to steal a pick, but there's Mijia that's waiting with the Meteor Strike. This Graviton's building up very quickly on T1W, and an Earthshatter that's just come online. So in terms of ultimates, it is not looking good for Team CC to be able to take this point.
Looking to see who pulls the trigger first. Chichiren will jump on, and the Transcendence also being used. The Graviton Surge will lock the backline into place, and now all of a sudden, T1W has an opportunity to divert, but Media does not find as much success as I believe he wanted to. Self-destruct will be tracked by the Shield of Silver 3, so no damage there. The point has found one tick. Meanwhile, in the backline, as CO did go through with G-Turn after that charge, looking for a second point. T1W, when are you going to come back to the point? There's 2, looking for potentially 3, and numbers are favoring the offenders on the point. This very well could be a third if they can keep G-Turn alive, but they're just not quite able to. Finally, the reinforcements come into play. It's just down to the Zarya with this Zenyatta, and it's just not enough, but still a little bit of damage dealt. It was not quite a full hold. T1W still have a little bit of gain to make here.
Yeah, there's no chance for a draw, or at least 84.4% on this first point. But with the amount of time that T1W has, which is just a little bit more than they usually start with, you've got to say, like, it's looking likely. But I'd say that the defense coming at Team CC with a composition was quite strong and just eventually lost the time battle in total. But it seems that they're going to be running much more of a compositional lineup with the GOATs. That basically means that they're not choosing to run that same composition yet again.
I mean, it didn't find a whole lot of success the first time around. Marginally, it did. I mean, the Rissa with a couple of clutch halts was able to keep this, again, heavy dive at bay, but Yakumo was not finding as much as I think he wanted to with the Junkrat outside of the one ultimate that took down Silver. And T1W, at least at the moment, again, anything can change, but they're opting to go with that same dive formula that they had from the first round, Ryan.
Very interesting. Maybe they just want to try out different comps to see how it works. Like, they look comfortable. Say what you want about T1W, but they very much are acting like they've won this map. They are playing very aggressively in situations where they don't need to. They're not playing this as they're not respecting, I think, Team CC as much as they maybe should. And because of that, they are making a lot of mistakes. This could be one of them, trying to run this composition on a map that suits it, sure, but Team CC are running what's meta, and that is tanky compositions. K-Hard getting a pick onto the Silver 6 straight away. It might just be the case that Tracer touches the point to force him back, and that's exactly what she's going to go and do.
Exactly what they're trying to do in Team CC with a little bit of a lack of mobility. Will they be able to get back in time? It looks like yes, they will. It will. Again, the peel is decent. Mullenran has a pretty tall ass to get back, but he will be able to evade. Most of Team CC, very low HP, but will catch himself a Harmony Orb, and we'll get him back to full. And now we just reset that completely. A good attempt for Mullenran, but not finding as much success as I think they were hoping for. Still 3 minutes and 30 seconds though, Ryan.
Not a lot of time, but like it's still trucking away. Team CC are very much comfortable. Got the Diva on the high ground, but that seems to be it really, so they're going to have to fight on the ground. We are getting the first pick up to watch it though. That just might be the turning point.
And with that comes picks onto both Reinhardt, so 5-on-4 action. Hy-Vee trying to make his way on in. Not quite near full charge, but enough damage with Mija being there to open up the point rather loosely. And now we see how much progress can be made. It's going to have to be a very elusive CO, which not going to be the case. Lucio getting taken down very quickly. The first point going the way. Looking for the second. They need to get to above 84.4%. Jichirin has swapped over to the Wrecking Ball, but immediately gets shield bashed. Will be able to reset with the adaptive shield, but has to contest. K-Hard has put himself onto a very desperate Tracer. We're just about there. This comes down to finding the last couple of picks, and G-Trin will not be able to stand up for very long. T1W finding the kills will get them up now. 3 maps to nothing. We have formally been introduced to Lord Vowels when we see him next, as this will be the set win for T1W. We still have one more map to go to though, Ryan, and I think you hit it pretty properly. This is a very confident T1W team, and it's showing a multitude of colors going in at the moment against Team CC.
I just say that if I was Volamel putting so much money and pride onto Team CC to show up, then that's the disappointing fashion. Just the way that this scoreline has come, Team CC are just not on the same level. Like they look like the teams that they've been following, and like that gap in that void in skill between T1W and Team CC, and also T1W versus Lingan, TSL, everybody in that group. It's the same story. It seems that T1W are so far the better team in Chinese contenders, and nobody can keep up. Team CC, I know that they could play a lot better than they are currently, but we're just not seeing it, and that's probably the most disappointing factor of them all. But Team CC do have an opportunity to take a map away from T1W, who might be able to go 20-0 with their map score at least.
And we'll see how much they want to flex into that again. Our pure escort map will be coming up next to finish off the set. A mere formality and potentially just a little bit of stat line hogging for the teams as they go in. But again, both teams have secured themselves playoff spots. So we'll conclude the rest of this set just after this break when we come back. Welcome back, friends and family of the Overwatch community. I'm I Hold Shit. He's Ryan Central, and we've got ourselves the conclusion of the regular season. There's no other way about it. We're going to map 4, final map of the regular season before playoffs. T1W looking extremely solid. And at this point, Ryan, do you think T1W just holds whatever strats they might have on Escort and have some fun with this one? Or do they go for the perfect, flawless season on map totals for the regular season?
I think they want the perfect season, but they could probably do both. I think at this pace, it's Team CC picking their poison with what map they go to next. So they have decided to go for the lesser poison, Dorado, because Route 66, T1W just going to run quad DPS, and they probably going to cry themselves to sleep at night. So Team CC picking Dorado for a chance to be able to break that streak. T1W aren't letting this up. They aren't changing their composition. They aren't playing something that is ridiculous or silly. They're just playing what they've played so far. Misha is on the Doomfist, and he has to be the MVP, at least for this game right now, right?
He has to be. I mean, there could be conversations and, polite arguments for other players, but by and far, it's been the Misha show. Making a ton of plays happen, although sometimes maybe a little bit over-aggressive, but when you do find the success that you've had so far, why not? Silver will find a little bit of battle and bruise, but again, Misha able to dive right on in immediately afterwards, which allows Silver to back on up, get full HP, and then re-engage, and goodness, this little pull and kill that T1W continues to pull out, offering up Silver a little bit over-aggressive, he backs up, Misha comes in, Ryan, it's just flawless execution.
It's the selfless playstyle. It's not necessarily spawn camping because it feels the teams can really punish that. And you see the T1W have been riding that line all throughout this series, right? They've been walking overextended a little bit too far that they get picked off, but now they seem to have found their medium, and this just seems to be happening over and over again. Orchid goes down, mincemeat.
Absolutely flawless execution again. Misha able to get the uppercut on the Brigitte out of the fight, which allows him to then put the rocket punch into the skull of GG Rin, who never gets himself going. And now T1W, if it didn't look dangerous enough, let's add some other abilities, some ultimate abilities into the mix, because goodness, I mean, T1W just look absolutely unstoppable.
They're holding this. They've held the first point for 1 minute and 10 seconds. This is the first engagement, which is more to just create time, and they've certainly done that. In the backline, we see Orchid go down yet again. Misha just does his number.
I mean, it's not only the fact that here's the thing, right? I mean, I'm going to casually talk about this while absolute slaughter happens on screen, but it's not just that Misha's finding damage and finding kills. It's the fact that he's also forcing Team CC way out of position by finding these clutch uppercuts, these seismic slams and rocket punches that push people around. Team CC is never able to fully set up as a full 6-man front, and Team CC just doesn't know how to respond to this at the moment.
Well, I think Team CC have just been playing this composition and making it work throughout the season, so they don't know what to do. Granted, there's some big earth shots here. The Transcender's keeping them up, but still, T1W seem to be doing okay here. They're just going to slowly back out and regroup.
But at what cost? Looks like it will be at the cost of what will be a lot of free capture percentage, or push rather, I should say, not percentage. And Orchid and the rest of the game will now regroup back up the payload to get some extra speed its way and try to find a way to find one more team fight win at least, obviously, for this first stage in front of the Fountain.
Right, and I think when you're looking at it this way, T1W are able to just make this composition work. As I said, Team CC basically ran this comp over and over again and had good success with it. So when it goes badly, they're not quite sure what to do. Granted, there's a big Transcenders coming here, Meteor Strike to shut down Jikiran. The rest of Team CC is going to fall apart.
And the healing was just not enough for all of the combination of damage that was coming in from multifaceted ways of T1W. They now slap on forward as Silver's able to find a DMAC and a kill, and almost actually it was a full team wipe before Team CC could get back into spawn. So now with a little bit over a minute left, we're looking at potentially one, maybe two more fights from Team CC, and they've got a couple ultimates to potentially find the break here.
So Volumon needs to call Vowels Lord from now on. I think that should be changed to Good Lord, because T1W are just absolutely owning this fight. This isn't even a contest at this point. Team CC are dedicating ultimates. They have a grab. See if K-Hart can hit it, because right now, again, the support's going down from Misha. They have no answer to it.
No ultimates were had to be used at all to get Misha in this backline. He's just going from support to support for absolutely free. Now finally the Meteor Strike comes through. Illusion will be taken down, so Silver Linings here as the self-destruct comes in, but GG Rin in this tight corridor will not live to see the light of day, and I have no words, Ryan. I'm completely lost here. This should be a close game, and both these teams are good teams, but T1W is making this look like Tier 2 playing up against Tier 5 at this moment.
Yeah, TCC are playing pretty poorly, but they're not changing anything. They're still running the same comp that they ran on the first map, and we're still losing engagements on. They just want to dedicate to this strategy and see if it works, and it just isn't. And like at this point, experiment, try stuff out, see what works. But right now, T1W have held them effectively in the spawn doors.
And Ryan, you're going to take over for me as my stream is actually delayed by, I think, a pretty significant margin, as it looks like we have a couple of seconds left to potentially find the last bit of defensive effort from T1W.
And it's fairly clear. I don't even need to describe what's going on. If I did, we might break terms of service because it's Meaty coming out of T1W Misha that's able to completely clear this one up. It's a case of stop, he's already dead. And that seems to be it coming out of this attack, at least for Team CC.
Indeed it does, and we'll see if we can throw to a quick break real fast if I can get my stream back up and running so we can complete this one out. So just give us 1 second and we'll try to get back into this one more full force here in just a moment. And back we are. Apologize for the small technical difficulties on my end, but we will be back to rejoin what, again, was a very one-sided affair. Now T1W looking to put this away, and again, that 20-0 is what they're shooting for here, Ryan. It's looking pretty likely at the point.
64 meters on this payload. It seems that Team CC are going to have to play aggressive. They have to waste so much time. And T1W are going to instantly back off, actually. Just give the room the Misha needs to do what he does best. No pick so far, but they eventually come onto Yakumo.
Oh, and the back line is absolutely getting decimated, and this time it's from Silver's hand, not from Mijia. So again, it's pick your poison. You want to get beat up by the right hand of Doomfist or beat up by the hard-swinging, big, towering hammer of Silver 3. There's not enough adjectives in the world to describe that thing. And now with the payload moving forward, it will be just one more team fight to potentially hold. The Wrecking Ball comes out for Jichi Rin. The Adaptive Shield will give him a little bit more survivability. And Yakumo, who now will offer himself to try to play some Doomfist in response, will at least take down the support of the Zenyatta Vuya. But again, there's just so many bodies here, and with so little distance to cover, T1W looking like they very well put this one away, as Bija is able to find a Sombra, and Yakumo, very low HP, will not be able to survive. And with numbers, the Transcendence will be a mere informality. I believe Bija is just sitting on the payload, just giving waves to that Transcendence of Origin. The Earthshatter comes down, and T1W will walk away in the back end of it as your dominant winners in Group A. A 20-0 run for T1W, and most notably, it comes on the back end of what should have been a very close game versus Team CC.
I'm so sad I held shift. I'm so disappointed in that game. It was just like I was expecting so much. I think it does like highlight the void that maybe was left by, we didn't see Ayu at all, for example. Like, he's a big player that's played a good amount of time for Team CC, and they just looked a little bit lost without him. Strategies, they kept trying to make it work over and over again. Even T1W led up in a lot of cases with hubris, giving up a lot of ground, making a lot of mistakes themselves. But Team CC couldn't really seize on that by getting any map win. T1W go 20-0 throughout the season, completely undefeated so far.
Nuts. And that's the way that we'll not quite reach, I guess, the pinnacle. That was supposed to be the pinnacle of our regular season, but we won't quite get it. I've been Shift. He's been Ryan Central. To close things out for the regular season, before we get to playoffs, let's send it back to Kenobi and what is, I'm sure, a very depressed Volleyball and a very happy Vals.
Thank you, guys. And as you can see, we have a new Lord in our midst here. We have Lord Vals. Praise be to Lord Vals. He is the winner as we see T1W take a 4-0 victory, completing the season with a perfect map record, something that no team beforehand in Chinese Contenders had done. You had LGD in the first season, who was 19-1, and the same with LFZ last season. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the game, even though it kind of looked a little bit like more of the same, didn't it, Volmo, throughout the last two maps?
Well, I have to ask my lordship if I am at the privilege to speak on his behalf.
Permission granted. Don't worry.
Fabulous. You know, we started the season. You know, I had heard through the grapevine that T1W was bringing on this very talented Doomfist player. Was very excited for them, and yeah, don't let your memes be dreams, kids. You gotta stick with your guns. You should always stick with your guns. But that said, CC did look completely kind of at kind of their wits end with this composition. They ran it all 4 maps with little to no deviation from Team CC at all. Very little adaptation, which was something that I expected from them into this match. When you know that a team is so good at something or has someone that is a specialist, you would assume that they come into this prepared, and it did not seem like CC was prepared. Now, granted, this is the end of the regular season, so we still have playoffs to look forward to. But some major things are going to have to change if CC wants to make a dent in the playoffs.
Okay, well, Vals, rather. Lord Vals, I should say. Well, actually, I didn't lose.
Yeah, you didn't. That's
yeah, so
I got to call him Lord.
Yeah, so Vals, just Vals for me. I'll give you the floor here. You called that T1W was going to win this, and tell me a little bit more about how T1W really just took it to Team CC in a way that I don't think Team CC was ever prepared for.
Well, way back in the 70s, there was a rock band known as Wings. The only reason Wings really found any success was because of one star member, and they eventually rebranded as Paul McCartney and Wings. I feel like T1W should maybe take a leaf out of their book. It's Micha and T1W Esports Club now. That's just how. Obviously, everyone on T1W played well. Silverfree had some great moments. Hybe did really well on both the Diva and Zaya. But it all came down to Micha, such great mastery of the Doomfist. I do feel a little bit for how successful T1W might be in the future. Obviously, it's a little while away from playing on it, but on the newest life patch, Doomfist is looking a little bit worse, so may not be able to find the same level of success. But we did see Micha flexing a little bit today onto the Zaya and Genji, where I found some success, so it's not going to be the end of the world. I think they do have to thank Micha. Maybe you go give him a pat on the back, maybe buy him a drink later on, just to say thank you. But honestly, I don't like to crown DPS players as kind of the MVP. I feel like that underrates the performances you get from tank and supports. Mm-hmm. But with
maybe
what
make an
today,
exception. Maybe
today you have to make the exception. Micha played at an MVP level today, and he was a fundamental part of why T1W, not just today, but throughout the season, have found so much success. No one has been able to find an answer to his Doomfist.
And, speaking of, answers that we're going to be seeing, T1W hasn't even brought out to this game, didn't even bring out all the comps they're known for, Why don't you tell us a little bit how that could be helping them in the playoffs? They didn't really show their full hand today, did they, Val?
Well, no, and that's the kind of terrifying part. We, again, not more than a couple hours ago, we saw them play Flag Gaming in the finals, and they didn't play Micha at all. Or if they did, they played it very little. Or played him very little. And they played more Assassin. He played the Zarya. He played the Widow on Ruin. And now they've completely pivoted off of that foot and moved on to this very specific comp that seems to be running amok through Contenders and is like the new thing to beat for a lot of these teams that have just been focusing solely on the tank mirror matchup. This is the new kind of demon that a lot of teams are going to have to get over, because it's not going anywhere. As long as you can as long as you have the pieces to kind of craft the composition, this comp seems to be very potent.
Yeah, Val's, you got anything to add to that, or?
I'm excited for what the future holds. Even if changes might be coming to Doomfist, we know T1W still have the great Sombra, they've still got the great Farah. T1W have so many tools, and if the tank meta is starting to fall away, I don't think there's anyone you could say that can challenge T1W in the next couple of weeks. Maybe Flag Gaming could go pound for pound on the dive matchup. Jason looking really good on the Fowler. But T1W went 20-0 for a good reason. They are the dominant team right now.
They're going to crown themselves, like Val's has crowned himself, as the lords of the Chinese Contenders regular season this year. So this is going to be our last game until the playoffs. So the regular season is over. We know all the matchups that are going to be coming in. So also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention thanking Broadcast.gg for letting us put on this production and for a region that I think all three of us love very much and love to be a part of. So if you want to be part of Broadcast.gg, want to be a caster, host, analyst, anything you've seen, production even, make sure to hit that Discord link in the link below and follow us on Twitter for more information when those playoff matches are going to be. For myself, Kenobi, for Lord Vals, Volamel, Rich Rad, I Hold Shift, and Ryan Schenzel, we will see you for playoffs. Thank you very much for this season. Have a good night.